Welcome to Creative Tian channel. Today I want to change the sponge bar for my LK150 knitting machine. And this is one I bought from Amazon. I have a link in the description. There are several choices on Amazon. This is a cheaper one. It doesn't have the sticky side, but both sides have fabric. I have my old one for a few years, and most of the needles are working fine, but some needles start to get loose, so I think it's time to change. Since both sides have fabric, so it really doesn't matter which side goes up, which side goes down. And when you buy the sponge strip, just make sure you will fit your model of knitting machine. Because the plastic bag machine uses different size and lengths of the sponge, so you just have to double check. And I'm going to turn the machine over to look at the sponge. First, I take out the mast and also the counter. You just pull it out. Now I have it upside down. We can look close, and here is our sponge bar. And you can see it's actually sitting above the needles when you are turning it the right side up. So remember, we have to install it that way. And before we pull out the sponge bar, it's easier to take out all the needles. So we turn the machine back again. And for LK150, you can see the needles have different colors. There are 10 needles of the pink and 10 needles of the white. So we have to know the order, white, and then starting 10 pink, 10 white, 10 pink, and 10 white. And the left side has 5 pink. So we are going to take out all the needles. You can pull out the needle all the way and close the latch. I have the old credit card cut up. Just close the latch and then pull it out and up. Now the needle is out. And we'll take out all the needle first before we install the sponge strip. If the latch is open, it will be difficult to pull out. Now I have all the needles out. I can clean up the channels with some brush. You can see a lot of dust. And sometimes there will be some fluff coming out. If you want to clean your needle, you can place it in a jar and have the plastic side up. And I will soak a little bit with some water and alcohol and some detergent, maybe just a few drops of the dish soap. And you don't really need a lot of alcohol or dish soap. It really depends on how dirty your needles are. And I'll just let it soak for a few minutes and then wipe it with a dry towel. Most LK150 machines are pretty new and your needles are probably still clean. But if you have an old metal machine that you bought secondhand, some of them might be rusted, and you can do the same to clean it. Now let's look at the sponge from the back side. You'll be in the channel here. You see the corner, and just pull it out. You can see this one is flattened in the middle area. The old one is about half the height, so that will really create problems when you are knitting. For the old one, I didn't use double sticky tape or glue it down. So for the new one, I will do the same without the tape. I think it really depends on the model number. For the LK150, I don't think it's really necessary. Or some people will do it only on the end of the sponge. We just need one tape at each end. So again, I want to clean it up a little bit. I'm just going to use my brush. It's a lot of dust. And clean up the channel for the sponge. There's a lot of dust. Or you can use a vacuum. Now I just have to place the sponge bar back to the machine, and this will be pretty easy. And you can decide which side to use as a top. In my case, both sides are the same. But check with the manufacturer of your sponge bar, because there are so many different types of the sponge strip. It's a little bit long, so I can cut a little bit so it doesn't come up like that. Now it's nice and flat. When we install the needles back, it will be below the sponge. I add some water, a little alcohol, and some dish soap, and I just give you a little stir. You can see all the dirt start to come out. In a few minutes, I'm going to take it out and then wipe it with dry towel. If your needles are very dirty, you can leave it for longer. After a little shaking and soaking, I'm ready to take it out. So I'm just using some rags to wipe it. Make sure you wipe away all the water so it doesn't rust. After cleaning up, I put it into separate piles. This is a white one, that's a pink. And you can see it gets very shiny. And the last step, I want to lubricate it with some oil, and I use a Lori Lin knitting machine oil. Some people like to use oil for the gun or for the sewing machine, or there's another popular one called LPS. You can check the link in my description. Those seems easier to find than this one. And I'm going to spray it onto my towel and just wipe it on the metal part of the needle. And my cleaning is done for the needle. And wipe it through quickly. Since I'm cleaning up everything, I will wipe the whole bed with a slightly damp cloth on both sides. Now we are ready to put the needle in. And I remember the first 5 needles are white, so I will place it. And the tricky part is to hold the sponge in the back, so the needle will be below the sponge. So you can push the sponge in a little bit. The first one is kind of tricky, and it gets easier. So it goes down first, and then go down under the sponge, and then lift up so it come to the front. It works much better now. Now we just do the same all the way, and I know my next 10 stitches will be pink, and then 10 of the white, 10 of the pink. If it's really difficult to install, you can unscrew the piece in the back, so it's easier to fill the sponge. Otherwise, you just have to wiggle a little bit and try to push the sponge up. When we insert the needle, it's easier to open the latch first. And then just keep an angle and go below the sponge. You can press it with your another hand, and you can feel the needle going under the sponge and then go straight out. Open up under the sponge So how often do we have to change the sponge strip? And I think average every year or every 2 years. It's probably safer to change more frequently so you don't get into problem when you are knitting. I know some sponge are higher density and it probably lasts longer. But even if you don't knit a lot, the sponge will still deteriorate over time. This is the back side with the new sponge. And we place back the counter, the mast, and the carriage. You can use the knitting machine oil to wipe the metal part and use a slightly damp cloth to wipe other parts of the machine. And the last thing is to place a piece of fabric on top when you are not in use so it doesn't get dusty. So that's all the maintenance for LK150 knitting machine. Thank you for watching. See you next time.